All right, y'all. So I have actually been really excited to talk to you guys about the newest installment of the Love and Marriage franchise, and that is Love and Marriage Detroit. Oh, yes. We have six brand new individuals, three brand new couples to get to know. And I think that personally, you guys may be excited about this show because I do feel like it felt fresh to me. It felt like, I'm going to tell you the truth. And I think I might have said this to Carlos because we did a series of interviews with the cast that I will be releasing over the next week or so. But it really does feel to me like early Huntsville, right? For a lot of us, we don't know these individuals. It was a little bit different for me for, DC because I knew of, was friends with, or was familiar with a lot of the characters on there, right? But now for me, what I love is there was something that Carlos and I talked about when we talked about doing like a Love and Marriage Atlanta. And he was like, well, I want to discover new places and new faces. And I said, you know what? That's fair. I totally understand that. So to me, I feel like we have a great looking new cast of characters for us to really dive into, sink our teeth into their storylines. And I'm going to tell you guys right off the rip, I'm not one of those people who's really interested in, well, this person, they used to do this 10 years ago, or they went to jail, 5 years ago. Unless that stuff comes up naturally within the context of the show, like I ain't really interested in all that because I don't care. To be quite honest with you, I'm interested in the stories that are being told on the television show that we're watching currently. And I would almost implore you to do the same because I do think that there is some magic to the discovery and allowing the story to unfold naturally so that we can just follow the journey and see where this road takes us. I'm super excited, especially after having spoken to each one of these couples, and they all have their own different vibes. And it's so interesting to notice those vibes in the interviews that we did, along with seeing what vibes they give you on the show. I'm actually going to give this as a fresh new episode. I'm going to give it a 9.9. Like I would give it a 10, but I feel like we have some more ways to go. Part of this is going to be the way in which the city of Detroit itself is interwoven into the fiber of the show in a way that it almost feels like it's the seventh character. And I told you guys before how I love when they incorporate the city and they make the city into a part of the story. And I feel like what you get here that is unique and different from DC and from Huntsville is this idea of there's still entrepreneurship that's at the core of what these individuals are doing, but there's also the idea of being an influencer, especially for two of the ladies, a wine owner for one of the couples. You know what I'm saying? Even though we'll discuss that a bit more, but also the music industry, which is a huge part of the story. So I also said that it kind of gave me an element of Love and Hip Hop, but not in the sense of how Love and Hip Hop is structured or the show in and of itself. But there's an element that we're going to discuss that reminds me of Stevie J, Jocelyn, and Mimi just a little bit. And just because it's music related, I just want to make that clear. There really is no similarity outside of that, except for the idea that we're dealing with love and there's music. And I just feel like it's so fresh to me. So I'm excited. Um, I could go on and on about how I felt like, again, the intro to the city of Detroit, which is narrated by Carlos King, I felt like was apropos because he's from Detroit, and so he knows the city. And I feel like it gives us an idea of where the city was, the truth of it, and then where it's headed to now, right? So let's get into the couples, right? Now, to me, if I had to give a couple on the show a parallel or a comparison, which is not fair because they're very different. It's going to be Brandon and Christina, and I'm going to kind of give them the Melody and Martell comparison. Now, by no means do I hope that they end up in any way, shape, or form like Melody and Martell outside of their level of success. But what I'm talking about is, their marriage ending or anything like that. I would never wish that because they seem so they're adorable together. But they are not without their problems, right? Brandon, he has a pretty much, I think it's called, is it Star Makers? He works in the music industry and he helps, individuals. He's kind of almost like an A&R rep. And I'm probably saying a lot of this wrong. I have actually verbatim what they all do in the cast bios, but I don't want to do that because I really want to tell you what I feel, right? And so it's interesting to me because the key here is the nature of their relationship as it unfolds in the episode is very interesting. you know, Christina is a stylist and a beauty fashion lifestyle influencer. And she's been in the business for a while, but we learn early on that she will not style the clients that Brandon works with. Now, we wonder why in that moment, but it's later explained to us that the reason why is, well, part of the reason why maybe because of what happened in the past, where it sounds like someone she maybe had either gotten close to or something like that that he was working with. Apparently, there was some level of inappropriate either conversation or some level of, I don't know, indiscretion that Brandon has committed that has left her in a space where she feels completely uncomfortable a lot of times with him having to go out and scout for new artists, because I'm sure it leaves her wondering, like, could this happen to me again? And Brandon, for his part, I love that he works in the music industry. Interestingly enough, he has a man bun in the show, but he's cut his hair now in real time. So I think that's interesting as well too. But the way he kind of spoke to her while he was in the studio working with this new artist that he has not told her about is very interesting to me. And I don't understand how she did not hang up the phone on him, because I would have been like, bruh, like you better regroup real quick. Cause that to me, when he was like, I don't even know why I picked up the phone right now. Mm. But the episode is bookended by two group events. One, I think, is like a cookout, sort of, so to speak, where we get to know all the couples and we kind of get to learn more about them. And they do talk about couples things like whether or not Brandon would ever be allowed to go on a boys trip. And it's really mostly because he wouldn't even feel comfortable because she would ask so many questions that it would make him feel like, I just don't want to go. So I think what it is there's a little bit of distrust there, it seems, but it almost feels like he's tired of the distrust, but it was distrust that it sounds like he helped curate. You know what I'm saying? So they're going to be an interesting couple to watch, because by the end, she's going to find out that he's working with a new female artist that she had no idea about. And she breaks down because apparently they've had agreements that before he signs on with any new, lady MCs or songstresses, that that would be a conversation that they would have. The next couple is Russell and Colby. I mean, again, another great looking couple. He is I think in the Army Reserves or the Marine, there's some reserves there or something. She's also an influencer, which I think is going to create some issues and tensions with her and Christina later. But in this group, it's the guys who have the long-standing friendships. And for Russell, I guess there's some interest in him going into the ministry. They kind of work out together. They are kind of like an it couple as well. Christina and Colby and Russell kind of give put me in the mind just a tad bit of maybe a Letitia and Marceau, but much less. Russell and Marceau do not seem like they have anything in common. Let me put that to you. But I think it's in the ranking of how, I guess it's similarities in how the relationships are going to fall apart, especially between the ladies, that I feel like is the biggest similarity between Colby and Christina. And then when we look back at Letitia and Melody. Um, they have an interesting relationship. I think that there's some aspect of him wanting to, go into, the ministry in a certain type of way, and whether or not she will be okay with that, especially as a pastor's child, right? And she is the one who actually spills the tea that Brandon is working with a new female artist, and I pardon me on the use of the word female artist, but that's kind of how I'm used to saying it. But I know that a lot of women do not like to be called females. So I'm trying to be as politically correct as I possibly can. So please charge that to my mind and not to my heart, as I'm trying to make sure that I'm using the the proper words that people would like to be going by. All right. And so finally, we have Anthony and Dr. Latoya Thompson. And, I'm going to tell you, they cracked me up in our interview. Like, Anthony is just a ball of fun. I feel like he is ready for reality TV and ready to go. He is very much interested in the men's movement and what that means. And, I believe that they've been married the longest. And he has a very interesting occupation and how he kind of works, and that kind of causes a little bit of distress, or it had caused some distress, especially during the pandemic, because she is a doctor, so she was left home with the kids, and he had gone to Atlanta for work for a while. So it was just it does create some tension amongst, well, between the two of them. But we don't really get much into that in the first episode, as much as I think we may get into it in future episodes. But I I enjoyed I enjoyed all of the couples, but they, I think, had me laughing the most for whatever reason. Um and some people, just it's just their energy. I can't even explain it. So, to me, is Love and Marriage Detroit worth watching? I would absolutely 110% advise that you watch this show, particularly if you have been maybe a little bit discouraged by some of the things that you have seen on reality TV as of late. And I know that a lot of you guys have been a little bit discouraged by the state of reality TV as it stands right now, because of, for certain shows we've seen the same things happen for so long. It is nice to, again, there is a joy in the discovery of finding out new characters, what they're about, seeing relationships unfold, and how they ultimately, hopefully, all come back together again, and how they deal with this space called reality television. So that's my thoughts on Love and Marriage Detroit, a general overview for you guys. Again, I will be releasing the interviews this week so that you guys can get more familiarized with the couples, and also to continue to hype up the show, because I do think that it is important that we support our shows, especially the shows featuring people of color. And I really, really like where this show is, at least I love where it's starting. So, with that being said, I will catch you in the next video.